Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Audit, Finance, and Administration Committee. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. Other individuals in the media may also be audio. They'll either do it with audio or video. How's that? I'm drinking my coffee now, so I'll be okay in a few minutes. Changes to the agenda. Madam Clerk, any changes to the agenda?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, we do require one more for quorum.
Oh, we do?
Councillor Collins and Councillor Morrow. And okay. Mr. Morrow has sent his regrets that he will be a few minutes late.
Okay. Forget everything I just said, folks. We're going to wait a few minutes. I'll practice on a word. I'm going to scratch my left hand and see what happens. Audibly.
Morning.
Let me try that one more time. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Audit, Finance, and Administration Committee. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton. See, I can't even say Hamilton now, I quit. And temporarily archived on the city's website. Other individuals and the media may also be audibly and or visually recording the meeting. I got it, Joey. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have changes as follows. Added as item 4.1, a delegation request from Rabbi Salzberg and Rachel Lyons respecting waiver of development charges for Lionsgate Montessori School. That request is for today. As well, a delegation request added as item 4.2, Joey Coleman. That's respecting the Governance Review Subcommittee Report 14-003. Added as item 10.1, waiver of development charges for the Lionsgate Montessori School. Added as item 10.2, funding for the Stony Creek Battalion's girls U14 soccer team at the Nationals. And also please note item 5.2, the report number should read HUR 14008. Item 8.9 has been distributed on yellow copies. And as well, we also have a verbal delegation request this morning from Kathy Cruikshanks, and that's respecting 50 Keith Street, which is item 8.5.
Excellent. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve the September 8th meeting minutes. Moved by Councillor Collins, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Thank you. Delegation request. Item 4.1. What is the committee's? Moved by Johnson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Carried. Item 4.2. Moved by Johnson, seconded by Pearson. All those in favor? Carried. Item 4.3. Moved by Collins, seconded by Councillor Morrow. All those in favor? Thank you. Consent items. Item 5.1 is now before us. Treasurer's apportionment of land taxes. Any comments or questions on it?
I just need to go back a little bit, please. I'm looking for 4.3 and I don't have it.
Kathy Cruikshanks, respecting 50 Keith Street. It's item 8.5 in the agenda. It was a request to appear before the committee.
It's not on this report. Okay, thank you.
It's probably during the approval of the agenda. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Back to consent items. So on 5.1, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Morrow, seconded by Pearson. All those in favor? Carried. Item 5.2 and 5.3, these are items that will be received. Any questions? Councillor Collins? No. Moving. Seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to public hearings and delegations. Rabbi Salzberg, Rachel Lyons of Lionsgate Montessori School, respecting the waiver of development charges for Lionsgate Montessori School. If the rabbi is here and Rachel Lyons, if they could come down to the podium, please, to make their presentation. Councillors, Rachel had provided us a school budget that was distributed earlier. Just that podium right over there. Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for allowing us the chance to speak. I'm Rabbi Dan Salzberg from Beth Jacob Synagogue. This is Rachel Lyons from Lionsgate Montessori School, here in reference to a request for waiver of development charges. Lionsgate has, as in the yellow packet before you, has been in Ward 1 for 9 years and has previously been housed in Melrose United Church, which is about 300 meters from Beth Jacob Synagogue. For space reasons, they moved this summer to Beth Jacob, and our interest here is in the development charges, which are significant for an organization of Lionsgate's size, as the budget before you would indicate, the need or lack of need for development charges here. The rent paid for, I have no stake in Lionsgate. I am the rabbi of a synagogue. The synagogue, however, has a handful of issues to which renting space to Lionsgate helps with. Our population, the Jewish population in Hamilton, has gone down over the course of the last few decades. The size of our building has not. To maintain the building and to ensure a level of staffing that is adequate for what we anticipate to be a return of numbers of Jews to the Hamilton area, as the McMaster Medical Campus, which is visible from where I stand, and the development of the Innovation Park and other areas of Hamilton continue to develop. We anticipate an influx of people, of Jews who have formerly moved to Toronto, we think will come back. To maintain the level of staffing in the building for when that happens, we need extra income to bridge us to that point. And the rent paid by Lionsgate will help us achieve that. We've budgeted for the income from Lionsgate's rent for this year and in years to come. And the development charges really threaten the presence of that income. The building that we have has seen a significant decrease in use over the course of the last few decades. We used to run an afternoon school there that had hundreds of students that would meet, that would have programming 6 days a week. Now we've got a couple of dozen students at best, and we have programming generally 2 to 3 days a week on the outside. The level of use has decreased significantly. Housing the Montessori school isn't significantly then taxing the city's, the sewer, the roads, all these other things that the development charges are designed to cover. Rather, it's replacing something that was there but is not there anymore. The relevant bylaw, which I took the time to read, says that the development charges are to help the city pay for increased capital costs required because of increased needs and services arising from the development of the area. The area hasn't been developed. We've been there for 60 years since the synagogue moved from the parking lot of City Hall, where we used to be. The lack of development, it's really primarily paint and flooring that's been installed rather than a new area being developed. We also continue as a synagogue to use the classroom space that Lionsgate uses. They're using it during the day, we're using it in the afternoons for the Hebrew school that continues to run. The synagogue is exempt from development charges as a place of worship by law, and the fact that we continue to use it, we feel should be considered in deciding whether or not these charges apply. We also, as part of our mission as a synagogue, try to contribute back to the community, which is evident in any number of things that we do, from helping with the Out of the Cold program to adopting a park in the neighborhood, but also the specific space we're talking about. We, for the last number of years, have allowed a tutoring program for deaf children to use rent-free as they were looking for space. They had been booted out of their previous space, and we allow them to use that a couple of days a week as without charging them rent, just as a service to a vulnerable population. So the space that's subject to development charges is used for many more things than just the private institution that is Lionsgate, but it's used by the public institution that is Beth Jacob, by a school for the deaf, and overall we feel that this partnership that we have also helps build bridges within the community. People who normally wouldn't set foot in a synagogue now do. People who would otherwise find this space unfamiliar are passing through. There's not a great increase in sewer costs. There's not a great increase in road costs because most of the families walk.
Are walking.
So for all of these reasons, for the well-being of the synagogue and for the questionable relevance of charges to this situation, we feel that that a waiver of development fees would be appropriate.
Thank you. Rachel, did you have anything to add?
Basically, I'm here to answer any questions anyone has. I feel exactly the same way, Rabbi Dan. We're really using it less, in fact, than in the past the Jewish community has used it.
Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of questions for you from councillors. Councillor Johnson, please.
Yep, thank you, and thank you for providing your budget. That's wonderful. I just want to have a quick question for you. Are these prices correct? Are they for a year? So 24 preschool children times 9,000. Is that 9,000 a year?
Yes, it is. September to June. So we run a school year.
Okay, so that's $375 a month. That's $93.75 a week for a child.
Those are our prices. So I haven't broken them down into week or day.
Time?
That's full time, yes. And that includes a hot lunch.
Well, you should be full by the time I'm finished bragging about it, because it's the lowest prices I've ever seen.
We have to be competitive because we're now competing with full day JK and SK that's free. So we've had to remain really competitive.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Councillor McCaddy, please.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I wonder if I could just clarify a couple of items, because I think it's important to understand the previous operation, Rachel, you had at Melrose United,
yes,
and the operation you have now. I'm
yes,
trying to understand whether there's any changes, because it's about a 300 or 400 meter move,
right,
and in all the same city services and that sort of thing, but anything different on your end really between the two?
We added a toddler program with 10 toddlers in the age of between 18 months and 3 years of age. And again, the reason we added that was to compete with the full day JK and SK. So what we were finding was with our younger students in the Montessori program, it's a 3-year commitment, hopefully, but we sign up our parents yearly. And what we were finding was that our parents would come for the first year, and then the second year, half of them would pull out to go to JK, and in the third year, another half would pull out to go to SK. And then as soon as full day kindergarten hit, those numbers increased drastically. So our thought was, is if we established a small toddler program with 10 toddlers, that we would get the parents used to the Montessori philosophy earlier, they would be more excited to then see the full program through.
Thank you. And Rabbi Salzberg, Mr. Chair, the physical space at the synagogue, often we charge development charges if there are significant changes occurring. In this case, there is a change of use permit required because it was a new operation coming into the synagogue. But the physical space, is that changing to any extent at the synagogue?
Not significantly. It's being used for the same purposes it was used for the last 50 years, and it's primarily a case of some new flooring, new paint on the walls, much stricter adherence to fire codes, to tell you the truth, because we have new people coming through and making sure that everything is in line. But no, there certainly has been no increase in space, and there hasn't been significant change in the layout of the space.
And the same goes, Mr. Chair, for the number of children or people using the space. I think in the past your own school was probably even perhaps larger than the Montessori school coming in now.
That absolutely was the case. So it would be a significant change if one compared it to last year or 2 or 3 years ago, but not if one changed it to the use over the period of the last number of years.
Well, thanks very much. And certainly, Mr. Chair, I have some comments once the motion's on the floor. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Morrow, please. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for attending today. You may return to your seats. And I need a motion to receive their presentation. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All those in favor? Carried. Councillors, do you wish to move item 10.1 up to the list and deal with it now? Councillor Collins is moving it up, seconded by Councillor Johnson. I need 2 coffees now. Yeah, thank you very much. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, item 10.1 is now before us. Councillor Collins, were you going to move that motion?
In front of me, Mr. Chairman, and it's seconded by Councillor Morrow.
Thank you. The councillor, thank you. No, we have comments before we go there. Councillor McHattie and then Councillor Morrow.
Mr. Chair, I just want to thank the committee for considering this. This issue just came up about a week and a half ago, and I know committee is finishing its work here for this council year. So I very much appreciate that. My comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morrow, please.
So I support.
You support the application. Okay, so we're good to go. Councillor Collins has moved the motion. Councillor Johnson has seconded. All those in favor? Carried. Any opposed? The item is carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 6.2, Mr. Coleman, respecting the Governance Review Subcommittee report. Mr. Coleman, if you could come to the podium, please.
Good morning, councillors. I've spoke on this item numerous times during this council term, and it's related to the procedural bylaw. As council may be aware, agendas were previously available for the council meetings to the public on Friday or Thursday before the meeting. This term of council, the practice was changed that they are not released to the public until Monday. The only time that it is released prior to Monday, exceptions for transparency, are on holiday long long weekends, when sometimes they are released on the Thursday or the Friday. Specifically, the Governance Committee, which I did do delegations at the subcommittee level and spoke to this, has reviewed the procedural bylaw. This is an opportunity for council to correct what has become a practice. And in 9.1 of the procedural bylaw, 9.1 and 9.2, may I humbly suggest to the council that 9.2 be removed from the procedural bylaw and 9.1 amended to include the release of the agendas to the public at the same time the council and the senior management team receives the agendas. As the council may be aware, often items that come to council can cause a lot of angst for the public as a result of the short notice of those items in the public realm. The agendas are released on Monday. By the time that we in the media have had an opportunity to review the items and ask the appropriate questions, it may be as late as Wednesday morning before we are able to publish an item for a Wednesday afternoon agenda, which results in an increase in inquiries to the councillors' offices from the public and a lot more challenge. If the agendas were released to the public on Thursday or Friday, that will enable the opportunity for more informed discussion of our civic affairs and for the councillors to receive better inquiries and likely less inquiries because people will be able to clarify the information prior to a council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Coleman? Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Chair, to Mr. Coleman, page 23, 9.1 is the one you're referring to?
Correct.
Okay. When you were at the Governance Committee and this was discussed, did you get any reasonable explanation why it was limited to 5 days prior?
So on 9.1, that was to give the clerks the opportunity to collect the materials, especially with standing committee meetings occurring up to 5 days, well, actually in the case of this committee, up to 24 hours prior to the council meeting. But the majority of them occur on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday prior, which means that the clerks need Thursday to be able to get the GIC report into the council agenda.
Thank you for that. And 9.2 is the other one that you're questioning?
Yes, so the goal behind that, as it explained to me, was to give council and the senior management team time to review the agendas, councillors an opportunity to inform themselves of items on the agendas prior to receiving public questions. Previously, when the agendas were released to the council early Thursday and then released to the public early Friday, this was working. Unfortunately, because the agendas are now not being released to the public until Monday, this has become broke. I am of the opinion that in the event that council is receiving questions from the public immediately after the agenda is being released, I believe it's appropriate for the councillor to reply to the constituent with, I'm researching the matter at the present time and I hope to have an answer to you shortly. Whereas right now what we've seen a few times is that because the agendas are being withheld from the public till just before the meeting, we're getting a lot more angst in the public and misinterpretation of items, especially as a lot of items are written in legislative language.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I have questions for staff. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Morrow, please, questions?
Yes, I had an email on September 19th from a constituent, and I'd like to just read the one paragraph to see if this is germane to what Mr. Coleman is saying. I'm not sure if the two
please proceed. Go ahead.
Are connected or not. I'd very much like you to consider the implications of voting in favor of the new practice that would withhold agenda items from public release until 48 hours prior to meetings. Considering voter turnout is less than desirable, would it not be in the best interest of your constituents and for the residents and voters of Hamilton as a whole to be informed sooner rather than later?
It is related to this item, Councillor. As I stated, it's become the practice.
48 hours. I wonder where that.
48 hours is 2 days. Okay. And so, as I stated previously, the practice, this bylaw existed in the previous term of council. Previously, the practice was to release the agendas to the public on the Friday, and that has changed. This is the first time the procedural bylaw has been in front of the council since that change in practice.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Coleman? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you.
And if I can ask the committee to move a motion to receive his presentation, moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All those in favor? thank you. Item 6.3 is now before us. Kathy Cruikshank, respecting 50 Keith Street.
Question on procedure, if I may, just on.
Please.
What will happen to that, the receipt? Does it now go to comments?
It's on the agenda later today, so we'll be dealing with the governor's report today.
Thank you.
Procedurally, this next speaker is coming up, and it's regarding 8.5. Mm-hmm. Is it the will of the committee to bring 8.5 up to this right after the speaker is finished, or are we going to carry on as
I haven't asked the committee yet. Kathy, please.
I've come before you today because of...
You can just speak right into the microphone. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. And for the rest of the committee, item 8.5 is what Kathy will be speaking about. Go ahead.
My name is Kathy Cruikshanks. I'm representing Dave and Linda Fenton. They are homeowners at a new home being built at 50 Keith Street. I'm here today to ask for a reduction of the development charges. We went to every avenue prior to paying for the building permit in protest to have these charges either eliminated altogether or reduced, or a new demolition permit being approved, and council was our only opportunity. Just to give you a little bit of history on this area and the home, it's located at, as I said, 50 Keith Street. It's pretty much a very rundown neighborhood. I believe it was the it should be known for Keith neighborhood and the poverty and the low ability to get any kind of funding back from your house, that type of thing. So the property values, low property values, I guess is what I'm trying to say, are very reduced over the overall of Hamilton. They have been subject to full DC charges, the same kind of DC charges as you would find in the Mountain and Castor. None of these would be recoverable. They've also evaluated the construction on a house of $317,000 in an area that probably at least 30% of the homes should be torn down. The only development that's within that area is on Burton Street, and that was a City of Hamilton property that the builders were able to pick up the property for $109,000. It's now a $4.4 million development. Very good for obviously very good for the neighborhood, but that developer obviously had no DC charges, grants from the city and such to build it. These are two hard-working individuals. The purpose of building the house is because Linda had suffered a major heart attack. Had she not lived on Keith Street at the time, she would have died. She died 3 times beforehand and was told from all of the doctors and that she would have died had she not been an ambulance available a block and a half away, and the hospital again a block and a half away. This house presides maybe a block, about 2, maybe 3 blocks away from with what it already is a downtown core, and within that vicinity, probably 1/3 of the property ownerships are all brownfields or industrial, that type of thing. So it's a really mixed neighborhood. I see that one of the concerns with the finance department was that it would serve as a precedent for other builders and that to come behind and also get the reduced GC rates. And speaking of that, as I said, most of the properties are brownfield or have would be subject to getting the race programs and different rebates for all of the cost associated with doing this. There, I would think, is very little privately owned residential lots. This lot is 25 feet by 100. The house being built on it is 19 feet wide. So to ever think that they'd be able to get the costs of these DC charges back, The city hasn't developed any streets or sewer work or anything that would be an advantage to them. I see the advantages, the pros to the city is obviously making the neighborhood that much nicer. It gets rid of the brownfield that had been there, which was neighboring on the contaminated land. It also has inspired, and I've witnessed this personally, a lot of the neighbors are very excited that that house is going up. There's 2 other new houses on the street. Both of them were exempt from any DC charges because there was a previous house on the property, so that was demolished. I am asking that for the reduction in that for all of the above reasons, because I just don't see where it's just for the private residents of Ward 3 to be hit with such high charges when there is no big development specifically for them. This house was needed for health concerns, and I guess I should tell you, they own the properties next to it, and this is the type of residence that you will find in Ward 3. The house Dave and Linda will be moving out of and occupying the new house is being provided to a low-income family. They have a house at 52 Keith that they've had a resident with 2 disabled children living there for $850 a month, and they've not raised the rent there on them for 6 years. Right? They obviously have the ability of, excuse me, selling the homes, but that will displace these children. So hopefully it doesn't get in a position when they're forced to sell a house in order to pay for these additional charges that are really excessive. And our belief prior to starting was that they would be waived between that and the original house that was on 50 Keith. They did leave the existing foundation there. I guess they allowed that at the time that the house burnt down. So we even tried to get a partial permit for that demolition, which would then extend the DC credits, but we were denied that. So I ask you to please.
Questions, Councillor Morrow? Questions first, please. Okay. Any questions for? None? Thank you very much for appearing today. And I need a motion to receive the presentation. Moved by Pearson, seconded by Morrow. All those in favor? Carried. Councillor Morrow?
Yeah, comments. Before the speaker leaves, you don't live in the neighborhood?
I don't. I grew up in that neighborhood.
Okay.
Actually, all of us lived at 93 Keith Street for all of my childhood, but I myself don't live there.
Okay.
She's the authorized agent for the applicant.
Gathered that, but I wasn't sure about whether she lived there or not. Not that it matters. And I am very interested in being supportive here. I'll say that at the outset, but I don't think things are quite as bleak as you've depicted. I've been spending a lot of time in the neighborhood. I represent the area for this year, and right at Cheever and Keith, the neighbors are working very hard to create a little park, which is on city-owned property right in the middle of the street. It's been stopped up for some time, and there's a tremendous vitality. It was well depicted in the current Spectator series, which has already involved the Keith neighborhood. And I was really impressed with how the spec writer handled it. It was very respectful, and I thought illuminating. So there is vitality there. There are people moving in.
Kathy, if you could just have a seat, please, because we're not having a conversation between the two of you.
Okay, I do agree with that. It's just
Kathy, with
the
respect,
individual.
Please take your seat. And Mr. Morrow, if you can talk to the committee.
Yeah, I appreciated her agreeing with me.
No, there's no questions, Kathy. Thank you.
There are young families moving in. There are more little kids. And my experience at both ends of Cheever, which runs right through the neighborhood, and other streets is a tremendous dynamism, and they're working hard for the neighborhood. So I think things are changing and improving. That doesn't mean that consideration shouldn't be given. One of their efforts is to improve the housing stock and play a full role there, help people do things, and this obviously would help. So I'm interested in being supportive at the appropriate time. But I think things are brighter than perhaps the speaker intended to have us believe. And I'm very hopeful because of the people in the neighborhood, the attitude, the neighborhood association, the Keith Hub, and other factors that the best is yet to come. Just as we can predict, I think Barton Street is going to be the new frontier for good things to happen, as happened and started to happen previously on Locke Street, King Street East, James North. I think the same will happen on Barton, and this is part of that general area as well, although a little further north. So I am supportive, thank you, of the recommendation from the Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson had asked earlier if you wish to move item 8.5 forward. I'll leave it to the committee if someone wishes to move it. If not, we'll continue with the agenda. Thank you. We'll continue on with the agenda. There are no presentations today. We're now moving on to item 8.1, which is... Sorry,
forgive me. I just missed what just happened. You asked for a motion to do this?
We're going to deal with it in its order today.
So, thanks very much.
Okay. So item 8.1 is the Governance Review Subcommittee. Members of the committee, you have before you the Governance Review Subcommittee report. Item 2 of the recommendations in the report are with respect to amendments to the city's bylaw, which governs the proceedings of council. Members of the public are afforded the opportunity to speak to this amendment. At this time, I'll ask if there are any members in the public who wish to address the committee today. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak to this matter? Anyone wishing to speak to this matter? And the third time. Anyone wishing to speak to this item? Hearing none, this portion of the public meeting is closed. We'll now move on to the amendments. The city clerk is in attendance and will answer any of the questions. So to the committee, I heard tinking over here. Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you. The first thing I would like to ask through you to Rose, actually it's more of a comment. One of the things that I noticed was that we're going to take the selection committee and put it down to less councillors, and I'm in full agreement with that. Being the past chair of this last 4 years, it was difficult at times to get quorum, so I appreciate that amendment. The other one, and it pertains to our previous speaker, page 23 for procedural bylaw. One of the things, Mr. Chair, that we have issues with, especially with planning, is that when we get an application that's coming forward and it's affecting a neighborhood, the neighbors are very frustrated because they don't get it until either right on the Friday afternoon or the Monday morning, and it doesn't give them time to prepare to come in on the Tuesday and present or at least write a letter. So I understand that you've got it down 5 days prior, which would make it the Thursday or the Friday prior to schedule meetings. If it was a Tuesday, we're looking at Wednesday now that they would be out, or Thursday would be out. Are we doing it 5 business days or 5 days?
Good morning, Madam Clerk.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, item 9.1 in the procedural bylaw is to provide the agendas to members of the committee. So your committee week would be Monday through Wednesday meetings. You get your agendas on the Wednesday prior. So that's what the 5 days speak to. Okay. When committee members actually get the agenda for their following meeting week.
So senior management and council members would receive it 5 days in advance of the standing committee meeting.
Thank you, and through you to Rose, then that means the public gets it 48 hours prior.
No, and
if I go to 9.2.
Right. To clarify, Mr. Chair, then item 9.2, which directs that the clerk provide the agendas to the public at least 24 hours after they have been distributed to members of council and SMT. So first we consider item 9.1, which is the 5 days, and then once you get your agendas, then it's 24 hours after that. So the 6 standing committees, they're released to members of council on Wednesdays, and they're provided to the public on Thursday. That's the 24 hours.
Okay.
The council agendas, because it's not printed and provided or distributed to members of council and SMT until Friday, that the agenda goes public on Monday.
Thank you for that. Rose, what is the downside? Was there any discussion as to why it can't be released to the public at the same time?
Chair, that was strictly a decision by the elected members to give them the opportunity if they wanted to have the more hours. There was a provision, just for your information, when we were first amalgamated in 2001, the provision was 48 hours release. So there was more time for members of council to have the agendas to review prior to them becoming public. That was reduced to 24 hours in 2005, and that's where we stand today, 24 hours.
Okay, thank you for that, Rose, and I appreciate you were taking direction from my colleagues. And just I can just have a quick comment for this one particular section. I'll be honest with you, I get all my agendas on the Wednesday, but I don't oftentimes get time to read them until the weekend, because that's the time I've got a couple of hours where I can, or more, probably more like 6 hours, I get time to go through everything. So having them released to the public on the Friday or the Thursday or one day after I get them really doesn't say the same thing, because they're probably reading it before I am. So myself, I don't know what procedurally we're going to do here, but I would recommend that we give them out at the same time that the public does. If not, then I would just oppose 9.1 and 2. Or 9.2 for sure.
Okay. Any other questions, comments with regards to item 8.1? Seeing none, who's vice chair? Councillor Johnson, if you want to take the chair. Yeah. I do want to comment, because Councillor Powers is the chair of the governance committee, and I sit on the governance committee. There's a significant amount of work that the clerk's office has done reviewing the entire procedural bylaw, and this is done clause by clause. So this is not, oh, well, what suits us this day? It's literally going through clause by clause, looking at the language, making sure that the language is plain, simple, looking what other jurisdictions are doing. And so this has been a long process that has been occurring within the clerk's office for the last couple of years, making notes and then gradually bringing it forward to the governance committee. So what we have here today is the recommendations that would go forward clearly to the council next year. If the council next year wishes to modify anything, they have that right. It's totally within their jurisdiction. I was of the same viewpoint as Councillor Johnson with regards to the 24 hours. I can tell you that historically, in public settings and governance, when the document comes in to the councillors, it goes out to the public at the same time, and that's generally a good practice. And I have no problems, as I've done many times with members of the media. They'll call me and say, I have this report, have you read it? And I have not, and I'll refrain from commenting until I've read the report. You can do the same thing with the public. They completely understand that. They're well aware of it, and I think most of them would expect that. So I don't have any issues with that. I've raised the issue at the committee. So if we were to scratch the 24 hours and make it consistent, I'd be fully supportive of that. But there were members of the committee and members of council who felt strongly that they needed to see the document for at least 24 hours before. With regards to other changes to the overall bylaw, I really think it was done, as I said, in a very methodical way to review it, to assess it, and to improve it. And that was the intention. And so I'll support what's here. I'll listen to my colleagues if there's any other amendments to it, and we will move on from there. With that, I'll take the chair back. And so now we need a motion on the main item to approve item 8.1 as presented, and that's going to be moved by Councillor Pearson and Councillor Johnson. Are there any amendments to it? Councillor Johnson.
Yes, sir. I'd like to amend that the reports for the standing committees and any agendas that are released simultaneously to senior management, council, and public. I'm okay with pulling that out and asking it to be an amendment brought forward to the council to test the will of the council so that everyone understands that at the same time. But if this committee is willing to pass that right now, I'd be happy to move it.
Well, the procedures would be that the amendment would be moved and seconded. If it's passed here, then it would go forward as an amendment to the council for ratification. If it fails, then you would have the opportunity to bring it up out of the information section as a motion at council to test the will of council. Okay, so you have moved it, and I think I heard Councillor Moore say he was going to second it. Okay, is there any further questions on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment? Carried. Anyone opposed? The item is carried. So item 2 has been amended. And now on the amended procedural bylaws. All those in favor? Thank you. A little bit quiet today. 8.2. It's very scary, isn't it? 8.2 is now before us, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Hamilton Aboriginal Advisory Committee Terms of Reference. Is there any discussion, questions, or comments on this particular terms of reference? If you can take the chair, Councillor Johnson. Just, and I'm not sure who on staff was involved with the terms of reference. Do we know that?
We have Maxine Carter, who wrote the report.
Yeah. Through the Vice Chair, Maxine Carter was the staff representative who worked with the advisory committee in preparing the terms of reference in the staff report. She is just on her way back. She had a commitment this morning and out of the building this morning.
So I just need to ask very clearly that the members of the advisory committee, they're supportive of this because they appeared before GIC and they had clearly raised concerns about the length of time to get the terms of reference. So I just need to hear it from staff that they're on side.
Through the Vice Chair, the members of the advisory committee put this forward for AFNA's consideration. It has been with staff for some time. It's gone through some consultation, internal consultation, and that's the reason for the delay in bringing it before AFNA. But again, it has been at the advisory committee for some time, and Maxine's here to answer any additional questions.
If I may, Madam Chair,
yes.
Ms. Carter.
Good morning, Maxine. This is regarding 8.2, Maxine. This is the Hamilton Aboriginal Advisory Committee Terms of Reference. Councillor Clark has some questions for you.
Mr. Garrett, fill you in. So I'm needing to hear that the members of the committee, the citizen members of the committee, support the terms of reference, that they've been consulted and
yes, Chair. The Advisory Committee for Committee Against Racism has actually, they're the ones that helped develop the...
Okay.
Apologize.
That's okay.
Yeah, okay.
No, we got a lot on the agenda today, so it's just a different file. That's okay.
Yes, sorry. Okay.
So this is the Aboriginal Advisory
Committee. Absolutely, yes. They are recommending the terms of reference. They spent a number of months working with a facilitator to help them develop those terms of reference. And they, at their committee meeting several months ago, they approved the terms of reference and asked that it go forward to council.
Okay. That's fine. That's the only question I had. I'll take the chair back. So I need a motion on 8.2. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Thank you. We are now moving on to item 8.3, a roster requirements review. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Thank you. Item 8.4, city vehicle use allowance and mileage claims. Councillor Johnson.
If it's all right with you, sir, I'd like to ask Anne just to give us a recap on her report. A lot of work goes into this, Anne. I absolutely, I want to say enjoy, but that would be like sadistic. I actually like reading your recommendations. I like reading where we are. Could you just give us a quick recap, please?
This is a follow-up, like you say, standard follow-up that we conduct usually 12 to 18 months after the original report. This particular one had to do with the different travel, and I want to use travel benefits that staff receive, whether it's reimbursement for mileage, whether it's a car allowance, whether it's a bus pass, all of those things that have to do with the transportation of staff. As you can see from the report, there were 6 recommendations made concerning all those. A lot of them had to do with developing a proper travel policy. And of the 6, 4 have been completed. One has been initiated, and basically it's the travel benefit policy has been drafted, and it's now circulating among SMT for approval, and it'll move up the chain before it's fully implemented. There is one recommendation that actually involved three parties: Public Works, Corporate Services, and the City Manager's Office through HR. That one is in different stages because each group had a different responsibility for it. But as you can see, 4 of the 6 have been totally completed at this stage.
Councillor?
Thank you, and thank you for your indulgence. When I was chair and vice chair, I was able to go through the agenda reviews and getting all these updates with Ann personally. So it's I missed that, but thank you very much for the recap.
Thank you. Councillor, if you can take the chair just quickly. So the travel policy that is coming forward, do we have an anticipated time frame when that would be presented?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the policy is before the review group in October and slated to come to senior management team in November, so it would be early in the next term of council.
And this is, just to be clear, this is a policy that would set in place the framework for expenses that are incurred on any type of travel, conferences, all of that type of thing, not just mileage and how they get there, but all expenses.
Mr. Chair, the policy, actually there are 2 policies, and I'm looking at Mike Zagaric, and the travel conference one, I believe, is in a separate policy from this one and is under the purview of finance. But I am thinking, as you're raising this question, it would be prudent to look at both together to see how they articulate and whether they should be combined.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Zagaric, and so are we harmonizing? Sorry.
So our policy specialist here, Anya Ledbeater, has just advised that the last meeting of the PRG group, which is our policy review group, did recommend that the 2 be combined.
Ah, that's excellent. I'm almost psychic, eh, Mr. Zagaric? So when they come forward, is the harmonizing then going to delay the report coming forward, or is it going to happen at the same time frame? Why don't we just give her the mic?
Perhaps I should introduce the committee to Anya Ledbetter, who is the individual who coordinates all of our stakeholder groups in the drafting of our human resources policies. So I'm
Good morning, Anya.
First day back from vacation, so we haven't had a chance to talk. So.
Good morning.
Hi, Mr. Chair. To answer your question, the policy review group has recommended that we look to combining all travel-related policies next year on the next work plan. So in a similar fashion to what you're seeing today with the Code of Conduct, so the inclusion of schedules. So at the current time, we are going to be moving forward with a travel benefits policy that will speak to the concurrent benefits, and then next year it will be included as a schedule within the broader travel benefits policy.
Councillor?
And the next question is, we also have a policy that was approved by council that's coming forward on proactive disclosure of expenses for council and I think it was senior management team, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Zagaric. So how is that? I know there's an awful lot going on in this area, but just wanting to make sure that all the fish are swimming in the right direction.
Through the Vice Chair, we will consult with staff with respect to ensuring that all of those are coordinated. Committee may recall that we were directed with respect to the disclosure of expense information is to increase the level of reporting via the web, as well as to introduce the addition of senior management team disclosure in 2015. So again, we will ensure and work towards coordinating all that information.
Councillor?
Excellent. Thank you very much. I look forward to that. I'll take the chair back then. On item 8.4, I need a mover. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All those in favor? Carried. We We are now moving on to item 8.5, which is what we heard from Ms. Cruikshank's on. This is the 50 Keith Street, and the recommendation here from staff is to deny the reduction in the development charges, and I heard someone tinkle. Councillor Pearson, I heard someone tink. Councillor Pearson or Councillor Johnson? Both. Well, you guys can fight for the mic then. Go ahead. Who wants it? Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to staff, if I could just ask some questions. And I'm reading it here. I understand there was a fire on the property. This was before these residents owned this property. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Zagarek.
Through the chair, just in terms of the relevance of the fire, you may recall, committee members may recall under our DC bylaw that if there is an existing structure and a demolition credit is the credit, the development charge credit is extended for 5 years post the demolition credit. There was a single family dwelling on this property. It was destroyed by a fire 31 years ago. The current owners took possession of the lots in 2006, which is approximately 8 years ago. So therefore, this property does not qualify for the DC credit, redevelopment credit, and hence the delegation today is asking for a reduced DC and asking committee to consider extending the SEPA development charge exemption to this property, which is approximately 3 blocks outside of the downtown SEPA.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that. I just want to ask also, recently we had a developer come forward that's not quite a block outside of the development area for a major request for a DC reduction. Is that not correct? That would be in the
Yes, through the chair, Mr. Pakin has asked on a number of times for review of the downtown SEPA, and as I understand it, there is a outstanding business item now at Planning Committee to look at variable rates with respect to our development charges in the downtown area. Committee may recall through our recent development charge bylaw update is we've actually recommended reducing the downtown exemption because of the level of activity, and we reported on the change in the development activity in our downtown area. Hence, staff are recommending to deny the request today. Again, this property is 3 blocks outside of the downtown SEPA, and again, it doesn't align with the changes that we've made with respect to the exemption, given the heightened level of activity, and as well, it sets a precedent in terms of varying with respect to the downtown SEPA, and for that reason, staff again are recommending denying the request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll listen to the rest of the questions and comment after.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson, and then Councillor Morrow.
Thank you. So I'm glad you cleared up the fire situation, because I thought, doesn't insurance pay for this? So I'm glad you cleared up that. So the present owner took over in 2006. Is that correct, through you, Chair?
Through the chair, yes. The present owner took possession in 2006.
Of a lot, and the present owner also owns the houses on both sides, from what I heard from the speaker, correct? Or we got that?
Through the chair, only on the one side of the lot.
And some down the street as well? Okay, I'm
sorry.
Through the chair.
Okay.
And it's really not relevant. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. So in all the time since they've owned the property in 2006, was there ever a request to extend the demolition permit?
Through the chair, there was a request to reconsider the demolition permit, and after consultation with planning and with finance staff, we're not recommending extending the DC credit, as again the fire occurred 31 years ago, and the purpose for the 5-year extension with respect to the development charge credit is to try to put some responsibility on the property owner in taking some activity and avoiding having derelict vacant land within the city, as well with respect to the capacity. Given that the property was destroyed 31 years ago, that capacity is not tied up indefinitely. that capacity is allocated to other uses.
And one last question through you, Chair, to Mike. It's my understanding that if it's a vacant lot, then the taxes reflect that they were not paying the same taxes as the people across the street and next door. This was a vacant lot with no building on it, so it got the tax break through all that period of time.
Was that a yes?
Through the chair, that's a good point. That's correct.
Thank you. Councillor Morrow, please.
Yeah, I don't want to be irresponsible, but I would favor an exemption here accordingly on the basis that the finance manager has suggested. And I think we are talking an emerging neighborhood, and I think that whatever encouragement we can give would be warranted and advisable. And I'm just sorry it's just outside the downtown designation. I wish that were 3 blocks further, or even 5 or 6 blocks, but I would favor reducing the cost here in accordance with the request.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, if you can take the chair.
Absolutely.
So I listened carefully to the discussion and the presentation. I'm of the understanding that 2 houses beside this are owned by the current property owner.
That's what I heard her say.
And it was also, do we have how much property they own? I also heard that they were renting property somewhere else in the city.
Through the vice chairs, our understanding is it's one property adjacent to the vacant lot that is being rented. We don't have an inventory as to what the property owner or what this individual owns with respect to property within the city of Hamilton.
Councillor?
Okay. So I'll just make some quick comments because I believe Councillor Moore is going to move a motion, and we'll see if it can get seconded. I have no doubt in my mind that we need to look at how development charges are applied to single-family properties where the owner of the property is residing in the property and then is wanting to do changes to the property. We have not addressed that, at least in my recollection, in the last 8 years, and I'm looking to some of my colleagues who have probably better memories than me. But realistically, you can understand where a homeowner is trying to change or better the home. They're living in the home, and they get hit with large development charges. So that clearly should be discussed and looked at policies in that regard. The threshold, the cutoff, and the challenge will be how do we make sure that we're not losing DCs to replace the pipes in the ground. The development charges, and I understand very clearly, I heard everything Kathy said, it's not that there's no development happening in the area and that's why they shouldn't pay for the DCs. The DCs, the development charges, is for future capital repairs and improvements to the area because of that growth. So in this case, a one-family home isn't going to put significant pressures on the sewers, but by the same token, if all of the houses along that street were changed and there was some intensity added to it, and the pressure changed in the water or the sewer, and we don't know what the sewers look like underground there to begin with, so and that is going to be addressed in the new council. We have to make sure that we're not losing those development charges, because if they're not being paid here, they have to be paid somewhere else, which is that fine balance that Councillor Morrow is talking about, and we need to address those issues. So I feel slightly uncomfortable doing this on a one-off, because I can tell you that the one that we just finished dealing with in law, it's still a development charge request for reduction. So if we do it on this one house and we don't do it on Mr. Pakin's, then there's now this argument that can be presented before the courts. So we can only make decisions based on policies that are before us. So clearly in my mind, I understand the rationale for the request, but the policies currently as written don't allow that. And we do need to address that in the new year to make sure that we're treating single-family homeowners who are doing repairs to their own property reasonably and fairly, and obviously equally. So those would be my comments. I'll take the chair back. Councillor Pearson, you're commenting? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I had asked that you come back after for comments, correct? So I thank you for your input also. And, you know, I'm caught on this one also, but I'm just afraid of what precedent we will set going forward. I agree that there may need to be a review when we go through development charges next term on policy for infill and single-family homes going in. But this is happening in my ward all over the place right now. And I'd be very, very concerned that residents aren't going to be coming forward and requesting the waiving of development charges throughout the whole city. So it is setting dangerous precedent. I feel for the residents, but I think there's been information given, and it's correct. They've owned the property since 2006. They've probably paid nominal taxes as just a vacant lot. And, you know, I'm very pleased that they've looked to make the improvements, and I'm sure more of the area will in time. But I'm just very concerned this time that we set precedent. So I will stand by staff's recommendation on this. Thank you.
You want to go back to Councillor Morrow for his motion, please?
Yeah, I'll move.
So instead of denied, you're moving that it be approved, so the reduction by 90%, correct? Okay, do we have a seconder for that? And seeing no seconder, so we can't present that motion at this time. You can, however, Councillor, present that motion at Council. You can put the amendment forward at that time. Okay, I need a motion to move the main report, moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Opposed? Councillor Morrow wishes to be recorded as opposed to item 8.5. Kathy, so that'll come back to Council to be ratified, and there may be an amendment at that point in time. Okay? Item 8.6 is now before us. Item 8.6, moved by Councillor Collins. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Johnson. All those in favor? Thank you. Anyone opposed to that? The item's carried. 8.7. This is the revised Code of Conduct for Employees as detailed in Appendix A, specific to GPS anti-tampering. Any comments from staff on this? This was requested by the committee and the council. So if I don't have any comments or questions, we'll have it moved. Moved by Councillor Morrow, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Thank you. We are now moving to item 8.8. This is the development charges conversion for St. Catherine of Siena School, existing building located at 220 Cranbrook Drive, and a request for that to be waived. Need a mover and a seconder. Thank you. And I believe Councillor Whitehead was supportive of this, was he not?
Yes.
Yep. Do we have a seconder for this? Yes. Moved by Councillor Johnson. Sorry, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All those in favor?
Carried.
Any opposed? The item is carried. 8.9. Item 8.9 is an anti-resource, oh Lord. Anti-Racism Resource Center project. This, you'll recall, we had a report at the last Audit Finance Administration Committee, and this is the recommendations that came from that. So item 8.9 is before us. Discussion, questions, and comments. Councillor Pearson.
Mr. Chairman, yes, and just going through it, I just want to be sure through you to staff. The recommendation saying that $130,000 be funded from the tax stabilization reserve, is that to cover the requirements for the 18-month trial period or just the 1 year?
Mr. Zagarek?
Through the chair, the $130,000 represents the 18-month period, and it represents staff costs. There will be some additional costs over and above the $130,000 with respect to accommodations, and those will be provided through our access and equity section in terms of office accommodations and resources.
Do we know approximately, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman,
no.
on that point, Mike, do we know approximately how much the additional costs would be? I'm assuming that's a facility space, correct?
Through the chair, it will not represent additional costs in terms of accommodations. We'll utilize existing accommodations. There may be some additional costs with respect to equipment, such as laptop. But again, in terms of accommodations, we will try to accommodate within existing space.
Certain. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Collins, you wanted to move the item. Is there a seconder for it? Councillor Morrow? Councillor Johnson, if you can take the chair, just some quick questions. I was supportive of this coming forward prior to this, but the questions I have is, have we sorted out exactly how the position, the resource center, is going to assist individuals when they call in with their concerns about racism that they've experienced? So is it the intention to reach out to the broader community for counseling, for referrals? What exactly are we going to be doing? Just receiving the complaint doesn't help a whole lot. Documenting it, I mean, fine, we have those statistics, but there has to be more than that. So, Madam Chair.
So through the Vice Chair, I'll start and Maxine can jump in. You'll see in the report reference to a steering committee. That's in recommendation E of the report before you today. And so, again, what is envisioned is coordinating the work of the Resource Center across a number of key stakeholders in the community. And the report makes reference to approximately 9 external members. And again, the reason for 9 was we were trying to align to the report that was before committee and will get referred to the next council in terms of trying to cap the representation with respect to the advisory committees. And so again, in terms of Councillor Clark's question in terms of coordinating the work of the Resource Center to the work that other agencies provide in the community, this is one way of consulting with those groups and ensuring that there are linkages between those groups in the Resource Center and that the Resource Center links back to those community groups as well.
Thank you. Just some quick comments, if I may, Madam Chair. So if you look at this Resource Center, the Anti-Racism Resource Center, holistically, what we're approving here is a pilot that will enable people who are experiencing racism to call into the Resource Center and to speak to people about the incident that occurred, and then to get assistance with referrals to other agencies and departments, but also with counseling, because there is real trauma that occurs. Some of the incidents that we're hearing in the community, it's simply not name calling. There's some real trauma and incidents of violence that are occurring in our community. So we have to be cognizant of that. And this really does get to that issue. It helps to provide and build from there in terms of how we assist people who are experiencing racism in their lives in the broader community of Hamilton. The pilot project, the 18-month period, enables us to assess it, to look at the statistics that are coming in, to look at the advice that was given, to look at how we've grown the network to improve those contacts, and I think that's all very beneficial. So I'm very supportive. I'm glad to see that our colleagues are supportive of it, and I think it's an excellent project going forward. And with that, I'll take the chair back.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson, you're wishing...
Yes, please. Just really quickly, Mike, through you, $130,000, that's just for one temporary full-time staff for 18 months, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
And through you, Chair, to Mike, this is not to say whether I'm for or against this project. My question is that $7,200 a month And when I worked it out to 35 hours a week, I'm just wondering, $50 an hour, is that norm? Is that what we're looking at?
So through the chair, the cost was developed in consultation with HR. I just want to point out that that $130,000 is not just salary dollars. That includes employer benefits and government benefit costs as well. So in terms of the position is rated based on the roles and responsibilities of the individual. So again, we have been working with HR in defining and describing those roles and responsibilities, and that is what dictates the salary costs.
I'm not against this project. I think it's well worth it. The problem I'm having right now is the level of pay that we're starting temporary, contractual. These are people, and this is the same issue I had back in the GIC or the public health. So this is where my concern lies.
Just sorry, through the chair, just a point of clarification. The hourly rate is currently estimated at just short of $36 an hour, and that's about $65,000 a year. The balance of just short of $18,000 is all of the benefits such as CPP, EI, government benefits, as well as employer benefits.
On that note, sir, and this is not against the project, it's the same complaint I had about the last project that came forward for 2 people at $264,000. To me, it is just the prices for the pay is, to me, is unrealistic to what's happening out there. So just for the $130,000, I foresee, I would like to just oppose C.
Thank you. And if you can just take the chair, let's get some quick clarification. What are you looking for the person who's going to be filling that position? Do we have job descriptions? Do we have... I know our matrix in terms of what the positions are, so when I'm seeing $65,000 in my mind, I know exactly where they're fitting in that scale in terms of the responsibilities. This isn't a clerical position. They're not pushing a broom. This is someone who's going to really have to understand racism and understand sociology and understand the impacts within the community. It's not.
Through the chair, or vice chair, it was included in the report from the committee in February. There was a draft job description that was provided to committee. Maxine is just finding that appendix to that report.
I just think it's important, Madam Chair, that we actually have that out there, because I don't want it portrayed in the media tomorrow that a part-time job gets $65,000 a year, because that's not the case. So there's some significant obligations and responsibilities with this particular position.
Through you, Mr. Chair, some of the job description includes for the staff of the resource center, they are developing the protocols and the processes around the details of the operating of the center. They're developing some of the protocols and the processes of how they take the complaints and what happens with that. They do some monitoring and tracking and writing reports. The report writing is a big aspect of it. Counseling the individuals, knowledge of the legislation and the various policies and procedures of not just the city, but other organizations, and the Human Rights Code is important, and knowing how to implement and interpret that is it's a skill set. It's something that is that you would have to get through post-secondary education generally. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of statistical work and being able to provide those stats in a monthly report that would be sent forward to our committee and then to council. So there's managing confidential data and information and keeping records. So it is more than just a clerical position. It's fairly a higher level position where you would need some, as I said, post-secondary education through a number of different disciplines, getting some other skills and training around human rights, anti-racism, anti-discrimination, anti-oppression, understanding how you implement equity and equity principles into the work you're doing. Being able to work with various communities at various sectors and having that development, understanding around working at higher levels with different boards and senior people who make decisions. So there's a lot of skills that are required for the job. Actually, they're doing quite a bit, but as a pilot, we wanted to make sure we covered as many things as we could, although there will be some support from the volunteers and the project steering committee.
Thank you. And so when I'm looking at it, and I'm with Councillor Johnson in terms of we're being careful all the time with FTEs, but I saw this role having so many similarities to what an ombudsman does, except it doesn't have adjudication. That's the big difference. And so when you're looking at that type of role, you're not going to get someone to do that job successfully at a lower wage, because they're not going to apply. People with the experience are going to go somewhere else. So I still support the project the way it's laid out today. I'll take the chair back, and it was moved by Councillor Collins and seconded by Councillor Morrow. All those in favor? And Councillor Johnson, you wanted to be recorded as opposed to C. Thank you. We can do that, Jasmine, yes? Thank you. And so the item is still carried. Councillor Collins, we're now on to item number 9. You have a motion for the Hamilton East Food Bank. Would you like to introduce your motion today?
I will, and if I could, it is here in the appropriate form. I don't need to waive the rules.
No, you're good to go. You have a seconder?
I thought I just heard one there.
Councillor Johnson?
Just to briefly summarize, this was supposed to go to the Grants Committee, which I guess had some issues with quorum. So it's here at the committee for us. It's the same motion that was approved last year, although as you may be aware, the group wasn't in a position to open a food bank in 2013, so they didn't collect the funds that were granted by the city, and this is essentially the same motion that was approved in 2013.
Okay, the item is before us. It has been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor? Carried. We are now moving on to 10.1, we concluded. Item 10.2 is the funding for the Stony Creek Battalion's Girl U14 soccer team at the Nationals. I'm in the chair, so I need some assistance from my colleagues. Councillor Johnson, please.
I'd like to move that we waive the notice of motion, and then if that carries, I'd like to move the motion, please.
Thank you. And Councillor Pearson, you're seconding the waiver of the rules because of the time sensitivity. All those in favor? Thank you. Councillor Johnson? Councillor Pearson? Seconding it, and I'll just, pardon me? Yes, please, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate this coming forward. I think this was the event that I had mentioned at the last council meeting that is going out, and I was asked if I could make a contribution out of my city budget, and at the time, unfortunately, because we're in an election mode, we are not allowed to make contributions and sponsorships after a certain date. So I really felt bad, and I really appreciate, Mr. Chairman, you're taking the lead in pursuing the funding through New Alta. I know that they will be very appreciative, and I think this is wonderful going forward. We have great sports in our community, and I certainly support what we need to do to help them moving ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll just be very brief. Councillor Johnson, if you take the chair, the Stony Creek Battalion girls have done an excellent job. They've already moved all the way through the provincials, and so now moving on to the nationals. We don't get that too often with too many teams across the city, and when we do, we're always here to assist in any way we can. So in this particular case, taking it from the royalties for the landfill helps. It comes from Stony Creek. It doesn't impact the taxpayers, and it helps this team really quickly make sure that they can attend. So I fully am supportive. So the item is before us, although, Councillor Moyer would... Well, if that's the case... Thanks, Councillor. Yep.
election cutoff. Sponsorships, however, can happen after the 27th. Is that correct information? After Election Day?
The new
I had some pending that I had to stop too, even though I'm not running. So
I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Just as a matter of interest, does Councillor Pearson know, perhaps?
I would assume, Mr. Chairman, through you, that I don't think any sponsorships can be done until the new council is sworn in, because we're technically not council elected representatives are not technically sworn in until December 3rd. So I don't believe that we could do any spending before.
I was told by another source that such was not the case.
Mr. Garrick.
Through the chair, with respect to sponsorship from the councillor's office budget, as per our policy during an election year, any sponsorship after, I believe the date is August 31st, is ineligible under, again, city policy.
Someone had information that next month, so
through the chair, not with respect to sponsorship through the councillor's office. There are some other expenses that continue through the year, but not through the councillor's office, and we can, if there's any specific examples or discussions, we can follow up with the councillor.
Tighten up on the budget pretty tight during an election year, so that there's nothing going out that shouldn't be paid for.
So I found.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Councillor Morrow. Okay, we are now moving on to, or any other notices of motions? Yes, we did. Yep. I am now looking at general information. May I please have a motion to remove items G and Q from the business list? One is the succession development program, which we approved today, and one is the anti-spam legislation. Moved by Collins, seconded by Pearson. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Private and confidential commercial relationship between the City of Hamilton and Pine Valley Enterprise. Does the committee wish to move into closed session to discuss item 12.1? No, and no. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Collins. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Very efficient, Mr. Chairman.
Now, Jasmine, do we need to move this in open session then? Okay, so
moved.
The motion is the commercial relationship between the City of Hamilton and Pine Valley Enterprises pursuant to Section 8.1, subsections E and F of the City's Procedural Bylaw 10053 and Section 239 of the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended as a subject property maintained. No, that's not the motion. I don't have the actual motion for it, sorry. Yeah, I know that. Someone to read it out in public. Okay, so here's the motion. That due to the impairment of the commercial relationship between the City of Hamilton and Pine Valley Enterprises, Inc., Pine Valley, that has resulted from litigation, staff be directed to reject any current and future bids, proposals, or quotations received from Pine Valley Enterprises, Inc., or any of its related corporate individual entities until and including September 23, 2016. B, that the City of Hamilton not enter into, and I repeat, not enter into any contract with Pine Valley Enterprises or any of its related corporate or individual entities until and including September 23, 2016, and that the contents of report LS 14018 remain confidential. So that was moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Collins. All those in favor? Carried. And at that, we need a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Pearson?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
You almost got away, Councillor.
Sorry, but I just want to make comment, as we have been at all of our last meetings. So Audit and Finance, want to thank you, sir, for being in the chair this year. You've done an excellent job. Our meetings have been very efficient and moved forward well. And to our staff, again,
except I wasn't in the chair. It was Councillor Powers.
Oh, Councillor Powers, as the vice chair. You've been in several times. But also thank you to staff for everything that they've done in bringing the reports forward. Fabulous work ahead of us.
And I think at Council we can make the appropriate thanks to Councillor Powers. So we are now adjourned. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.